For all the great benefits and wonders of technology, for all the advantages of technology and all the social media platforms we use today and benefits we can get from them, for many of us in the SME sector, business, and particularly sustainable business, frequently comes from personal contact, introductions, personal connections. There's a quote from leading business author and international business consultant Bob Berg that I particularly like, and it goes, all things being equal, people like to do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust. Now, getting known, liked, and trusted is a process, as is knowing, liking, and trusting other people. And that process starts with the first meeting, first introduction. What many of us may not realize is that before we open our mouths, before we even move a muscle, we're communicating a huge amount of information about ourselves. There's literally a wealth of information being broadcast. So what I'm going to do today is sort of like a speed dating version of our face in terms of some of the financial aspects that might be revealed. Nothing too confidential. But just a little preamble. Face reading has been used in Chinese business, Chinese politics, Chinese medicine for at least 3,000 years. The documentation goes back that far. And the understanding is that there's a great deal of information about our personality, behavior style, communication style, work style, stress patterns, and our relationship with finance revealed in our facial features. When I first met my probably most significant teacher of the last number of years, it's a woman who has Chinese on her mother's side, literally grew up learning to read faces at her grandmother's knee. Her grandmother advised the Chinese community in San Francisco. When she saw me first, she looked at me and asked, "What happened when you were 28 that had a negative impact on your finances?" The answer was, "I got married." Now, I know Natasha and Lawrence here got married recently, so I do want to assure you that my experience is not universal. The Chinese refer to the nose as a money pot. Excuse me. So the nose is referred to as a money pot. The cheeks are referred to as money bags. And I just took photographs, or I downloaded some photographs from a recent Forbes list of the top 7 wealthiest people in the world. I'm sorry, what looks great on the small screen doesn't often come across as well as it might on the large screen. But for those of you, hopefully you can see it more clearly than I can actually. That's Bill Gates, number 1. Carlos Slim Helu from Mexico, number 2. Amancio Ortega from Spain. You may be aware of Zara, Massimo Dutti stores recently opened in Dublin, part of his portfolio. Warren Buffett, a face that's familiar to most people at this stage. Larry Ellison, CEO of Oracle. And Charles and David Koch of Koch Industries, the States. They're, amongst other things, supporters of the Tea Party. Won't hold that against them here. But one of the key things you notice with all the richer people, and I could have gone through a much more extended list than that, they all have large noses and they all have large ears. Large noses are not obviously a guarantee that you're going to be wealthy, and I'm obviously a case in point, otherwise I'd be a multi-millionaire. But it does help. Large noses are associated amongst other things, not just with financial drive, but with drive in general, or not just with financial acumen, but with drive in general, with energy, determination to get out there in the world and achieve something. Now, it's not to imply that people with small noses can't achieve, but I can assure you, you will not find many seriously successful entrepreneurs with small noses. That's your homework for today, by the way. Go and check that. But if you do find very successful entrepreneurs with small noses, I can guarantee you 100% that their success will come from working doggedly in their business rather than on their business. They'll be so glued to actually working in the business, they won't have time for the vision aspect of things and for expanding beyond where they're at. It will just be continuous day in, day out, hard slog. And there's nothing, I'm obviously not putting down hard slog and hard work, but that's what they're geared for. And they would find it very difficult to change from that style of behavior. Just referring briefly to the money bags, it's not the case with all of them, but with most of the wealthiest people, you will see that the cheeks are nicely rounded. You could almost compare them to sort of hamster cheeks, where the hamsters store their food, and it's an indication that they're well capable of holding onto and investing and managing their money. Now, I'm going to take you through a few other features, specific features. So how visible are these images? Please, please. Technology has them all baffled. Okay, while the experts are working on how to draw the curtains.
I think we actually have a curtain lady in the audience, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe she wants to volunteer.
It could be.
I think
yeah.
they are.
On the motor.
Yeah, I think they are.
It's something with a big nose to do.
Anyway, if anybody would like, for those of you who can't see this too clearly, if anybody would like a PDF afterwards so you can actually get a clearer picture of what it is I'm talking about, please let me know. I'm happy to forward it. That is the nose of a former Taoiseach, not the current government party. It's Albert Reynolds. Albert was, as we know, a very successful businessman. Money from dance halls, pet food industry, as well as his income from politics and presumably various other sources. He has what you would call a Roman nose, which is regarded as possibly the ideal nose for making money. It's nicely full. There's a sort of a bump in the middle, which is regarded as a shelf on which money can lodge. And you'll also see when you view him face on, the nostrils are not at all visible. So it tells you that I certainly would not accuse him of being mean. He's certainly thrifty. He's certainly well able to hold on to his money. This is somebody who's more current. This is Louise Phelan of PayPal. And the particular thing I want to note here is how broad the nose is here at the top. If you can regard the nose almost as a funnel, where the money comes in at the top, ideally the nose will be broad here to allow the money to flow in. Now we also have noses that are Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We also have noses that are less than ideal. This is a face you'll be familiar with certainly from the cinema. You may not know the name. It's the nose of an American actor called William H. Macy. Very well-known American character actor, but you'll notice particularly how thin the nose bridge is here. Now, insecurity is part and parcel of the business of being an actor. And what's the term? Actors often use the term resting when they're out of work. And it's estimated that most actors are resting for 90% of their time. Macy has acknowledged taking on a number of particular roles that he wasn't especially interested in, purely because they paid well, and they allayed some of the financial insecurity he was experiencing. Anybody recognise that nose? It was, let's just say, it was active at certain recent tribunals. Also a former Taoiseach. It's not perhaps as clear in the picture as I would have liked, or certainly as it is on the small screen, but what I'm looking at here is a very rounded nose tip. When you see that, that's also an indication that this person has long-term issues around financial insecurity. Even if the money is coming in, they tend to worry that it will or won't, that the flow of money will discontinue. And it's an ongoing thing that gnaws at them right through life. Now obviously, this particular former Taoiseach at the tribunal, there were various sums of money mentioned which seemed to us to be substantial, but I presume he had a lapse of memory about his financial insecurity there. The quickest thing to look at when you're looking to present a service or a product to people and you want to know something about their spending style, have a look at their nostrils. As you can imagine, I'm a real hit at parties. Again, it's what looks better on the small screen doesn't come across ideally as I might like here, but what I want you to see here, what I want to point out here is when you're looking at somebody face on, the larger and more visible their nostrils are, the more willing they are to spend money. In fact, the harder they find it to hold on to money. And the reverse is also true. The smaller the nostrils, the more thrifty and conservative people are in their spending. So if you take nothing else away from this presentation, take away the relevance of looking at people's nostrils. A really exciting day ahead for you. When my son was small and in school, the class were asked, what does your daddy do? And he answered, my daddy looks up people's noses. I didn't take him on to do my PR. But the other thing I want you to look at here, again, unfortunately, it's not as clear as it might be, but these are two very prominent people in the technology industry. This is the nose and nostrils of Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple. What you note here is that his nostrils are quite visible, they're quite large, so happy to spend, but his right nostril is noticeably much larger than his left. As you can see, I go into microscopic detail about the most disturbing topics, but please bear with me here. The right side of a person's face reveals their public persona. The left side reveals their private persona. So, particularly if you're presenting a service or a product, you want to know whether it's going to be of interest in the person's public life or their private life. So, if one nostril is particularly large, it will tell you where they're happiest to spend their money. These are the nostrils of Steve Ballmer, the outgoing CEO of Microsoft. And in this case, his right nostril is actually considerably smaller than his left. So in terms of the business side of things, he's going to be much more conservative in his spending. In his private life, he's going to be much more flahuluk. Sorry, Natasha, that's generous and willing to spend. Another area to look at with regard to spending is the ear. Where the ears are long and flat close to the head, we'll see that. I'll be looking at the richest individuals shortly, I'll point it out. But where the ears are long, flat, close to the head, it indicates a capacity for long-term investment. And long-term investment will be really important to these individuals. But where you see I have marked lines on the horizontal lines on the ear here. If you're to divide the ear into 3 horizontal areas, measuring from the bottom of the lobe, if there is one, to the top of the helix or the outer rim of the ear, and then you compare the size of those three areas. If the top area is noticeably much larger than the other two, this is somebody who's willing to speculate financially. And J.P. McManus is certainly somebody engaged in financial speculation to some considerable success in his life. If you have the upper third of the year being noticeably larger and you have a gap between the two upper front teeth, then this is somebody who is very willing to take financial risks. Now, I'm not saying gamble madly, but they are willing to take financial risks that others would balk at. These are the teeth of Michael O'Leary. He also has a similar ear like that. And if you remember back to 9/11, when the global aviation effectively shut down, this fear of flying, etc., airline bookings were way, way down. Michael O'Leary took the opportunity to take out a major order with Boeing. At a time when everybody else was backing away, he jumped forward. So if you see that combination of features, again, somebody who's willing to take a calculated financial risk. Going back to Warren Buffett, and why I'm showing you this, it's not just because he's wealthy, but because really it's all about then taking the information and being able to communicate effectively with the individual. So the face tells us a lot about the personality. We've looked at a couple of areas in relation to finance, but it also tells us a lot about the personality and behavior style. Now, he's quite a rounded face, so that tells you that he's likely to be quite an affable individual. He's got quite a wide mouth, so it tells you he's likely to be fairly chatty and talkative. So you could fall into the trap of thinking he's going to be very friendly and you can just walk up to him and have a chat about anything. And that would be a serious mistake. His lips are particularly thin. When you see very thin lips, that immediately tells you stick to factual matters, stick to business matters with this person. Do not get into anything personal. Don't go up and ask them how their weekend was and did they see the game or whatever, because you have to earn your way in. And you can make a big mistake. You can get them to close the door before it's opened if you jump in too quickly. So thin lips tell you that this is somebody whose emotions are way back in the background. They're there for business. Again, unfortunately, it's not as clear in this picture, but you'll notice something to look out for on it is if the lower eyelids are straight, just straight across, this is somebody who is emotionally very cautious. So again, it's another reminder that you don't jump in there with being really chummy and friendly with them. It won't work. And the third thing to notice particularly, again, slightly hidden by the glasses, but his eyebrows are very straight. So where you see a series of horizontal lines like that, eyebrows, lower eyelids, lips, very thin lips, it tells you, again, this is somebody who's about facts and information. If you see more rounded features, rounded eyebrows, bigger eyes, fuller lips, they're going to be much more personable. They're going to be much more willing to chat about anything and everything as well as business. How are we doing for time, Mark?
You're fine, you've 10 minutes.
Okay. Any obvious questions there? Or is everybody just totally bewildered, baffled, skeptical? And I would hope actually that some of you are skeptical. I would regard that as a very healthy perspective to take. I've been working with this stuff. I started studying it back in 1981. I've been teaching it since 1985. I've seen the value of it, but I take what works. When I started the study, I was taught the philosophy of non credo, which literally means I don't believe. And taking that a little bit further is, I don't believe until I've checked it for myself. So I would strongly recommend that anybody here who is interested, take it away, take this information away and check it for yourselves. Don't just take my word for it, even though you can actually believe me, I'm an honest guy. Just like Mark, I'm offering a little bonus. Applies to current or prospective clients or customers. You can also add in prospective employees if you like, at sort of management level. If anybody would like, this applies obviously to attendees here, if anybody would like to avail of an offer, I can do it either in person, via video, Skype, FaceTime, what have you, or I can even use good quality photographs. I've actually assessed potential clients for some of my clients just from their LinkedIn photographs. So when you put stuff out there on LinkedIn or whatever, believe me, you are being watched. So anybody who would like to talk to me about anything I've talked about or discuss this, because as the picture indicates, learning to read people is part of the jigsaw of developing a relationship and developing serious business with them.
Can I just ask a quick question? Of course, that's okay. If the face reflects the personality and vice versa, if you like, what happens with people's faces that change during the natural order of their life? So a younger person, a child or a teenager, their face is changing and growing and developing. Does that mean their personality essentially is changing at the same time? Or do they have the one personality that they're born with? And
it would be a strange personality that doesn't change and evolve as we experience life. And it's understood that our life experiences are reflected in our faces. Now, something somebody once said to me is that, yeah, we all, as we go through life, we all develop lines. And most of us do. But where the lines are, how long they are, how deep they are, the angle of the lines tells a lot about how people have dealt with their personal experiences. So the personality, their perception of life, their experience of life will change as they evolve, and their features will reflect that. As you know, I met your son Jack when he was a small baby, and I told you a number of things to look out for with him, which I'm sure are coming through. But
yes.
I told you he was somebody who was going to be very curious and ask questions and not be easily fobbed off with any kind of lazy answer. So I know you're experiencing that. But Jack is evolving and developing, and his features will change. So it's how the features change, what aspect of them change, and where the lines, marks, colours, etc. go. That tells you a lot as a face reader about what the person has experienced and how they've experienced it. Roundabout answer.
How is this affected by plastic surgery?
Plastic surgery is regarded as being an external manifestation of a desire for internal change.
Okay.
That's the quick answer. It depends on what people have done, where they have it done. A classic example of it, I've used it in other presentations, some of the people here have seen it, is Michael Jackson. If you look at pictures of Michael Jackson as a small child, he had a beautifully rounded nose, natural nose. If you look at him as an adult, his nose was obviously majorly altered, and it was a particularly thin, pinched look to it. So that nose tip, the rounded nose tip, goes with being sociable and outgoing. The narrowed nose tip goes with being reclusive. That was a classic example of cosmetic surgery reflecting internal change. I can have a chat with you at greater length about this.
No, that's interesting.
Anyway, please feel free to throw any questions at me afterwards, good, bad, indifferent. I'm more than happy to have a chat, answer any questions you might have. There are my contact details if anybody would like to avail of the offer. And I think we're going to have a short break now, but I'll just hand over to Mark, before we go. Thank you very much.